class. This is a quick little review for the final exam. The final exam will cover everything we've covered the entire semester. And of course, Java 1, too, because that's just how programming works. It builds on the previous stuff that you've learned. So the tests will be laid out exactly like a normal test. It'll just be a bit longer. You'll have terms, of course, method terms. Argument's the value that's passed. Call means you call the method. Local uh, variables, meaning that a variable is local to a method, means as soon as you leave that method, it's gone, or local to an if statement even. Method declarations, when you declare a method and basically say what parameters it's going to accept and what it's going to return. Method overloading is when you have the same name multiple times, but they take different parameters. And those parameters are the values you're going to give it. Pass means giving that method data, information, integer, string. Pass by value means you're passing a copy. This is used for integers, doubles, things like that. Pass by reference would be another one, and that's when you pass by, let's say, a pointer value. And you would see this like with an array. You're not actually passing the values of the array, but a location of where that array is, so it can get changed. Of course, we've got arrays, array index out of bounds exception. Dynamic array means basically, for example, I ask how big do I want it to be, and it gets created at runtime from the number I typed in. Elements and a single item in the array. Index is that 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 number. Linear search means I start from the top and go to the bottom. Traversing means just traveling through the array. And last but not least would be objects, of course. A class is a data type that defines variables, state of an object, methods, behavior. It's the template for what we're creating, basically. You right-click File, New Class, and you create, a class, a chicken, a car, whatever you want. And you define the attributes and things that go with it. Constructor is the thing that actually kind of creates that object. It decides what values you're getting it, what values are set. That's what a constructor does. Default constructor would, you don't give it anything, it just sets things to default values. Imagine a character creator in a game, and it just defaults to the same, basic parameters, and you get to tweak it after that. Encapsulation, protecting an object's data from outside, like for example, making things private, making sure, outside people can't come in and change stuff they're not supposed to. Instance of a class, an object in a class. This is basically when I say blah 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 equals new class. That means I'm creating an instance of that class, or I am instantiating the object. Null is an empty object. So before I have that new, it's null. Object, of course, is what we're creating. It can be, anything we define. We've already talked about private access, public access. Private means only this class can access it. Public means anything can. And then, of course, static method. Basically, the main is everything in the main has to be static because the main is static. The main has to be static. In your classes and other files, they won't be static. Static means that there's only going to be one iteration of those variables or of that object. If I made all my stuff static when I was creating an object, you can create 10 of them, but they'd all technically be the same object. You would change one and all of them would change because static basically means there could be only one for all intents and purposes. Now, garbage collection is when I point something away from an object or I null it or something. Well, that information's still there. It's still taking up space. The garbage collector will come in and chomp it down, basically get rid of it. It's not super efficient as doing it yourself, but it does prevent some issues. Now, of course, you'll see terms. You'll probably see some short answer questions asking you about certain things. If you paid any attention in class, that shouldn't be much of an issue. Just explain how what an object is, or explain how an array works, or why you want to use an array for this, or something along the lines of that. And of course, you'll have your obligatory code reading. Here's some code. What's going to happen? Well, let's see. We've got methods, arrays, and objects, and you'll see code from any and all of those. You might see specific code just for arrays, single, two-dimensional, 20-dimensional. No, maybe not that big, but probably see a couple of method questions. Then you'll see, of course, a couple things with objects as well. You'll see a gambit of all the questions that we've covered for the most part. And then, of course, at the end, you have your writing of the code. I will give you a list of programs. You get to pick, and I would encourage you to read through all of them thoroughly first. You pick one from one section and one from the other, and you'll turn in both of those. If you don't turn in both, I'm going to grade the one you turn in, so make sure you turned in both. I would say it's probably better to do it all in one file than to try to do it in multiple files. So just make one project and probably do it there instead. Now, don't fall into the trap of picking one, figuring out you don't like it as well as you thought, and then trying to pick another one 20 or 30 minutes later. Because then you've wasted 20 or 30 minutes of your time. You come back and, oh, you work on this other one and you find out it's not even any better than the one you just picked. So you spend another 20 minutes on that one and you don't finish either. So read through everything, make sure you've made your choice, and I would suggest you stick with it unless you absolutely say, I'm not going to be able to get this. Then you could try your luck, I guess. But keep in mind, don't get caught in the infinite loop of going back and forth between two and not getting either. It might be better just to stick with the one. That's why you should read through them pretty thoroughly and get a good idea of what you're doing beforehand. All right, now that is the final exam. Also keep in mind that the final exam can count twice and replace your lowest test grade. Uh, programs are programs. You have a whole week to work on them, give or take. Uh, or you have most of the whole week to work on them. Whereas a test, see what headset, there we go. Where a test is one day. I understand missing a day because something happened, or bombing a test because the problems or issues. But a program, you have plenty of time, ample opportunity to ask and get help on that. So you can drop your lowest test grade, but not any of the programs. Now, the where the test will work is, we've had our two tests, and then you'll have the final exam. If it is higher, it will count for the final exam and then replace the lowest test grade as well, so it'll count twice. If it is lower, then it'll count once. And generally that's how it's going to work. And I will go in and I'll have to grade everything, and I will do all the drop grades and whatnot after the test is done. All right, well, if you have any other questions or anything like that, let me know.